We served the community and we offered tremendous value, but there were absolutely business goals behind that activity that were very important to say, this is why we're investing time and money to make this happen.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Derek Weeks, Chief Marketing Officer at Katalon and best-selling author of the book Unfair Mindshare. Derek, how are you today?
I am great. It's super exciting to be here, Andrew. I really appreciate coming on and looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Excellent. I appreciate you spending some time with us on Business Ninjas. Please start out by telling us a little bit about yourself and about Katalon.
Yeah, so I am currently Chief Marketing Officer at Katalon. We are a company in the B2B software space, and we help quality assurance teams and software testing pros around the world automate their software tests to make sure that when you and I use the desktop applications, web applications, mobile applications, that they actually work as we expect. And when new versions of those come out, they actually continue to work as we expect. So it's a fun place. It's very meaningful work. We have great people around the world that work on my team as well as in the company, and we're growing tremendously. So it's a lot of fun. I've been here for about 10 months. I've spent 30 years in the B2B marketing space, all in software companies. And all in companies that kind of relate to IT operations, DevOps, developer tools, and so forth. So this is kind of the area that I love and I've been in through my career, and is part of the work that I've done, and I think we're going to talk about in the conversation as well. Through various companies and work, I've built communities that have helped us, elevate our role within the market and our presence within the market, and really incorporated those as part of the marketing strategies that we pursued.
And when did you start that sort of community-based marketing approach? How long have you been doing that sort of thing?
It's a great question to start with, because there was certainly a point where I remember it was probably 4 companies back, and this is, maybe that's 10, 12 years ago, where we did something in the community where we were in this niche of SharePoint and business process management, and we thought we could invite the community into something and really drum up a lot of interest. And we went from kind of a sleeper participant in the industry to literally everyone was talking about us. The next company I was in, we had an idea to start a community around the DevOps area, and we did this in an effort that from idea of we're going to kick this off to we went live with it 90 days later was 0 to growth of 13,000 in a community, which then went to 100,000. But I'll go back a little further on why those things made sense, because you just don't stumble into those things miraculously. And I think toward the very beginning of my career, if I think about what I was doing in marketing, my role early in my career was product marketing. And as product marketing, you show up to a job and someone's like, here's a piece of technology, and your job is to help us market this and say the engineers built this thing and we need to get it to market and help us communicate, what that is. And rather than saying for this particular piece of technology, whatever it was, it has certain features, it's this fast, it's this, weighs this much, it has this performance, this version is less buggy than the last one. I always looked at, well, what are people trying to do with this? How does it fit into the activity that they're doing? What else does this have to work with? And the not looking at the product, but looking at what people wanted to do with it and how that fit into their world always led me to kind of thinking further beyond the product to what does the person want to do? What does the team want to do? What does the company want to do? What does the industry want to do? What does the market want to do? And the further you go out on that, I think the more powerful marketing becomes and the more it brings people in to engage. So I wouldn't say that, from the very start, I knew community marketing was going to be a thing, but I think it was just that practice of don't overly focus on the product itself. Focus on why people would care about this and how it actually changes their world. And I think that just evolved over my career of, just think bigger. And the kind of concentric circles, if you will, or the ripples just got further out in terms of my understanding and how I applied it with different teams and people that I work with.
It sounds like you're about a decade ahead of the curve in terms of, now everybody says features tell, but outcomes sell, right? You gotta speak to its impact on the person who's in front of you and what can they expect to achieve with this device, service, platform, whatever is at hand. Now, when you say community, was this exclusively digital in the early days, or did this involve getting physically together in conferences and things like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when it comes to community, I've done both. And the first example that I told you about of like we were a sleeper kind of company and then everyone was paying attention to us, that effort was a little bit of we went out and the basic exercise was tell people who the most influential people in the industry are. And that could be academics, it could be resellers, it could be thought leaders, it could be analysts. And we hired a company to study, who these top influencers were. And we were going to reveal the list over a 6-week period, I think. And we did this online through some well-known industry forums in that particular space. But we started that by saying like, hey, we have this list and we're going to reveal it. But before we do, we want to ask the community that existed in these forums, who do you think should be on the list and why? And you got, people kind of contributing in on the ideas. And then we released the first part of the list and we're like, here are the academics or here are the thought leaders. And then this, drummed up this feedback that was like, that person definitely deserves to be on the list. But why is Mary not on the list? We all know Mary. Mary should be on the list. This is controversial. And that got people talking online, but we also ended up investing in a lot of presence at industry events, community events. They had SharePoint Saturdays, which on Saturday in some place around the world, we'd show up and everyone was talking about this. And certain people that were on the list were present at that show and they got badges or like logos of like, I'm on the, SharePoint influence list, what have you. So that was definitely a mix of in-person, online first or digital led, and then in person with all-day DevOps that I did with a number of friends and colleagues in the DevOps space. That really started as online. And the reason that it started as online is we were in the DevOps community. We didn't start the DevOps community. The DevOps community was meeting locally and meeting regionally. And if you had enough budget to fly you to an event or to attend an event that might cost $100 or $1,000 to attend, depending on what it was, you could go to that. But we found out that I might, Andrew, I might meet you. You work at a bank. And I say, I'm like super glad to meet you and you're at this event. How many people are at the bank that want to learn about this topic? And you'd say, oh, well, we have like 250 people back at the bank, but obviously we can't bring 250 people to this event, that's all the way across the country that cost $1,000 plus hotel and all that. So we decided to there was a engagement in person for these things, but it had its limitations on the reach. So we said, why don't we complement the in-person things going on in the industry that others are doing with an online community? And we started All Day DevOps, which is we're going to go online. There's going to be no vendor pitches, and it's going to be free. And so it's educational. Everyone can access it. The 250 colleagues of yours that couldn't go to that thing can now all come to this thing. We weren't there trying to pitch our products or anything. We were just trying to be helpful. And that turned into this huge online event where in subsequent years, we had 40,000 people participating in this event around the globe. But we also ended up, it was interesting that it evolved into in-person and digital, because I remember this guy, Andre Udis, worked at Capital One, and he said, hey, you're doing this online thing. We have this big auditorium at Capital One. Would you mind if we just broadcast that in our auditorium and invited our employees to join? And we can all watch together. Like, do we have to all register to be part of this? And I was like, no, you can just show up. We're just trying to be helpful. And then he said, well, we could also open this to the public if you want to like help us promote the fact that these different locations will have the auditorium open. And that started the viewing party effort. So we actually encouraged people. We said, hey, like, Andrew, you don't go to these conferences alone, right? You try and go with some colleagues, and then afterwards you have lunch or meet in the hallway, and you're like, what did you learn at this session? So we said we should encourage people to just do this, like reserve a meeting room, reserve the auditorium, reserve whatever, like watch together. And meetup groups or local companies would do this. So the community ended up making the physical part of the event. So when we ran this global virtual conference, we had 180 live meetups that registered with us, and we promoted like, hey, this company is doing this. Some were private, some were public, but they turned it into a physical event versus a digital. So I think there's always this complementary value of, as much as you and I could meet online, if there was an opportunity to meet in person, it's even better.
Well, you created a safe space. You tell people there's no pitches coming, and everybody, there's a sigh of relief, and they can talk to their peers the way they would like to, as opposed to, all right, where to catch, what's in it for you, right?
And that event the conference was broadcast for 24 hours straight. You can imagine how big the audience would be if we said, hey, Andrew, for 24 hours straight, you can come and hear vendor pitches one after another. No one would attend that. No one would attend that.
What year was that event? When did you go?
I believe the first one was 2016 that we did.
Okay, so let's be pretty early in the world of webinars.
It was, so the interesting thing about it was very much pre-COVID, where we were doing this gigantic virtual event and inviting people in. And it was, again, it originated from in-person exists in this, but it's not scalable. We want to create something that's complementary, that is scalable. And the funny thing was, when COVID comes around, which was not funny, but all of these marketing teams were swarming around, oh my gosh, we have to go from physical to virtual. We're used to running webinars, but how do you engage people at scale? We're like, we got this. We're well down this path of how to do it at scale. And all these people went to, well, we were pitching in person, let's just pitch online. It was like, that's going to attract a small part of your audience, and we could attract a much bigger audience. That not only was it community based, it definitely helped us on the company side of. We did have an aim as the company we're at, Sonatype, that time for All Day DevOps. We helped grow that company. We had aims. Here was our revenue targets for the year. Here was our pipeline targets that we had to support that. Here are the top accounts. that we wanted to engage. And we needed to, report to the board, we're growing this business, and this isn't just a fun activity that we're pursuing. There were business goals behind the scenes that we served the community and we offered tremendous value, but there were absolutely business goals behind that activity that were very important to say, this is why we're investing time and money to make this happen.
Any negative repercussions to that ripple in the pool of pitches starting to sort of come around the periphery of that safe community?
No, because we did it responsibly. And part of that is, everyone, if you're a marketing professional, you talk about your, total addressable market, or your TAM, total available market, total addressable market, and then serviceable addressable market, obtainable market. And those, when you're bringing 40,000 people into a space, we understood, one, our first job is be helpful. Second is live up to the brand promise. We are not pitching in this community. Third is just understanding within that community, there was a very small portion of that community that cared about the thing that our company, and we understood those people, some part of those people might be in the market. One part was knowing that our company was involved in it, helped with the brand affinity that we had. We absolutely did not pitch this huge community, but we did do things with the community that helped us find the business opportunities. One is, you can imagine if people were having viewing parties out there, our sales team was talking to different companies that they were working with and prospects saying, hey, this thing's coming up. Do you guys have a viewing party? You should get together. We'll send you a bunch of t-shirts from the conference. We were just being helpful to them. When you get this community of 100,000 people that we built, we would go out and do an industry survey. We invited friends from this community to help us build the survey, so it wasn't just a vendor survey. We said, hey, you went to this conference. We now have a survey. We'd like you to participate in the community survey. Here are all these different organizations, academics, analysts, vendors in the space. We're doing this survey. We'll publish the results. We would have 5,000 people participate in this survey. Now, all of a sudden, when we build the survey, we produce the survey reports, then people like me could go out to an industry conference in person and say, hey, we surveyed 5,000 people. You want to know what's going on? Here's the survey results. And people would show up to that and recognize Derek from Sonatype was presenting this community survey results. And maybe I should learn more about that. Maybe I should visit their booth at this conference. We also did things to naturally pull the community from the community orbit, as I call it, into the company orbit, which would be things like, I could actually try and find, I have a lot of books on my bookshelf back there, but one of the books back there is a book called Voices of All Day DevOps. And the simple way that the book worked was we hosted this conference every year. There were 180 sessions that we hosted as part of the conference. Those 180 sessions were half an hour long and basically helped us build 90 hours of content within 24 hours, video-based content, and we put that online. We had a team that watched the video sessions, about 50 of them that we thought would be powerful sessions, or we learned while we were doing the conference, this is a super session. We created blogs on that, and we posted the blogs online at our conference site, and also at different industry blog news channels, if you will, or news sites around to get that information out there. So we go from video online to blogs online in different channels. And then once we had the 50 blogs together, once a year, we put those blogs together into a book. And we called the book Voices of All Day DevOps. And when we went to industry events, we would do book signings at the industry event. And often people that spoke at our conference were present at that event. So we would say, oh, Damon, hey, Sylvia, your chapter about your session is in the book. Do you want to come to our booth and do a book signing around 3:00? Because we're going to give away a bunch of books and you're featured in it. You should sign it. People would come to our booth. Obviously, if they came to our booth, we would scan them, give them a free book. We were being helpful, but this linked a community thing into a company thing where people then came to our booth and they got scanned. Of course, they're going to be in our marketing, marketing funnel, if you will, as part of that. So there were ways that we responsibly connected that community effort to the company effort in a way that wasn't offensive, that ruined the brand promise. Because the thing that would have ruined it is, hey, Andrew, you and 40,000 other people show up to this conference. Part of the promise is no vendor pitch. But by the way, tomorrow, you're going to have 18 emails in your inbox from us and all these different sponsors about, here's my product, here's my company, here's where we're so important. That would have ruined the brand promise. Because yes, we delivered one day, but if we failed you the next, you wouldn't come back. You wouldn't come back into the Slack channel where we had tens of thousands of people in the Slack workspace sharing information. Also, no vendor pitch rules there. So when you keep the brand promise that the community offers, that has very long legs. Where literally, we're now 8 years since we started that conference and endeavor. There's still people that reach out to me every week that I built those relationships with that need some help or I need their help. And they're like, absolutely, without question, because you were helpful that time and for years following, I trust you.
I love the approach. The burden of establishing the pitch relationship is on the members. It's taken away from you. Again, you created a safe space for people to establish and further relationships. You want to pitch each other? That's on your time. This is a safe space. I love the approach.
And I think that it's important to note, look, I'm a CMO, right? Is my company pitching? Absolutely. Like many, many times a day, we are in front of prospects or customers pitching something. There is a role for that. And that role has a very specific audience that we have worked on generating awareness and trust with in order to get those opportunities. The majority of the work that we do at Katalon today and other companies where I worked involves pitching to the market that we're in. But if I just limit marketing to the audience that we want to pitch to, I have a smaller set to work with. If I say at the same time that I'm doing this, I can invest a little extra to be helpful in a broader community. There are these marketing research reports and things that say 95% of the market is not in the market to buy something at any given moment, right? So you have 5% that is pitch worthy and that actually is looking to be pitched at some point in their buying journey, right? Or to engage with you. So what do you do with the other 95%? You could either say, well, let's ignore them because they're not in market, or you could say, I'm going to do something externally with the community where I'm not pitching, where I'm building trust, where I'm building relationships. And at some point over time, those people may enter the need and the timing to say, I'm ready to buy something in this space. Who's going to get a seat at the table, right? Who do I know? Who do I trust? And again, it might be like 5-10% of a marketing budget that does this. It's certainly not anywhere close to a majority, but it's worthwhile investing in that as creating the balance. And kind of as I started earlier, the concentric circles, like who do you bring in, how do you think about this becomes much more relevant.
Again, I love the approach. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Katalon.
So with Katalon specifically, I'll touch on the community work that we're doing. And you happen to be catching us at a really great time because we have, I think I looked last night, 98,680 people in our community. We're now, mid-December as we're recording this. And we get about 3,000 people a month joining the community that we have. So at some point, we've been talking to the team, are we going to get an early Christmas present in the next couple of days? Are we going to get a New Year's present? Are we going to get a beginning of January, kick off the new year kind of present to reach that 100,000 milestone? And so as part of community, when I came into the business, and I've been in this role for about 10 months, community was not part of the marketing team. And part of what I agreed to with the CEO was if I came into the role, we would merge the community team and the marketing team together. Because I understood this connection. I had obviously written the book Unfair Mindshare. That's a book about community-led marketing and how to approach these things. But I thought it was really important as an aspect of how we went to market and engage. In the community when I joined, by the way, like 10 months ago, just to give you a sense of this, I think we probably had around 65,000 people in this community. So not even within a year going from 65 to 100,000 is a big feat for us and all the investment that we and other community members put into this. But there are a couple of things that I shared with the team that were really important for our company. And that was, we have products that we're selling to other businesses. And the businesses like those products and they want to understand how to use them and be successful with them. And part of that is, well, the product can be so intuitive that people can just understand how to use it. Two, we help those customers onboard through our customer success, sales engineering teams and other teams to onboard and be successful and share practices in doing that. But one of the things when you have this large of a product community, and we even say this on our homepage, from day one, you're never alone. While we offer things from Katalon as a company, we also have this community that is very active. So when you have questions, how have people done this? How have people used our technology and integrated it with other things? What does it connect to? What value are they trying to get out of it? How did they convince other teams at their company to do this? They can ask those questions in the community. And yeah, I could imagine as a vendor how that might work, but the practitioner to practitioner exchanges are, one, authentic, two, practitioners aren't pitching each other. Right? They're just being helpful. And that kind of the motto, if you will, from day one, you're never alone, was something that we needed to bring more into the fold to help other customers, current customers or future customers understand that. And even as part of this, in terms of measuring, it's not just a feel-good thing, but it actually impacts the business. I've worked with our team on collecting data internally to say, how many prospects or community members engaged with our discourse forum or our online training and certification that's free before they became a customer? And it wasn't just like, hey, in the buying cycle in the last 2 months, they decided to join the community. They might have joined the community a year, 2 years, 3, 4 years ago, and just known that this existed, and maybe they're using our free product as well as part of that. So how much engagement was there pre-sale? And then also looking at how much engagement was there post-sale. And when we went and looked at the data, and the community team never did this before I had come in and asked to see if we could pull it together, they were amazed at the number of touches that we had pre-customer, and also the number of engagements that we had post-customer, and also with partners that we have in the industry, how much they were engaging both from a pre-sales and post-sales standpoint. But as part of that, it helps us create and understand the business case where, as a CMO, I say, how much of my budget is attributed to helping and supporting the community? And why would I invest less or more when I'm planning my next fiscal year budget into this? And if I can tell myself, my team, the CFO, the CEO, our head of sales, hey, here are the engagements. Here are the touch points that this provides. Here are the touch points that this provides afterwards. Here's how we're helping customers in their journey onboarding. These are the metrics behind the number of touch points, the number of engagements, the increase in revenue. By the way, the customers that are more active in the community are also more likely to expand their purchases moving forward. Maybe they expand their purchases faster than non-community members. This starts to take is the community just a feel-good thing that a lot of people are participating, or is it actually a business value and a differentiator? And that is, something that we didn't necessarily have that metric muscle before I came into the business, but I helped expose it. We collected the data, so we had the data. I just helped expose that muscle to the business and then put it into a rhythm of, in addition to all the good things that we were doing, we also have to report on the impact of this.
From where I sit, it's a brilliant strategy. It takes more touches than ever in any industry to land a contract, a sale, a conversion now. And rather than spamming people with a pitch on a regular basis, they're engaged with each other and the trust factor builds quickly. They almost ask you for a pitch at some point, I'm sure, because they're like, well, wait a minute. I like you guys. What can you do for me?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a shift of energy that's hard to come by.
Yeah, one of the things I think would be fun to touch on as well is how we're, and we talked about this in a prior conversation, but how we're using AI in engage with our community as well. Part of it goes to when you have a really active community. I don't have a huge staff around community running this 100,000 person community. It's a pretty small team, single digits, less than one hand of people working on it. But they are really in charge of building a forum for community members to interact. The content in the community is very much community generated. We don't spend a lot of time saying, what should we talk to the community about? Let's do something. But let's say you and I are QA professionals and you have a problem. You come into the community and you're like, hey, I need some help with this. I see that as another community member and I respond, well, here's what we did at my place and this is what I'd recommend. And by the way, I use this integration piece that we either custom built or like I found somewhere on the internet that was helpful and maybe open source code or something like that. We have this conversation, others might chime in, and then we kind of get to the solution is met. Like we solved the problem that you had. So that happens in our discourse community, and anyone can find that online through Google searches if they happen to search on the topic we were discussing. But that's in you can imagine a discourse thread, lots of different conversations. So we've actually taken a number of those top conversations that are happening like this week. We'll copy the whole thread into ChatGPT or a similar tool. And we'll say, can you create a blog between Derek and Andrew's exchange about what's happening, what they were trying to do, and put that in a slightly different form, and then we take it and we put it on the Katalon blog. So even if you came to visit our website and you were doing research and you didn't stumble into the community beforehand, you might look at this blog and say a very, strong value, like very timely, authentic, practical kind of content that helps us with, helps you as a visitor with, is this company sharing things that are relevant to me, or are they pitching? Because this very much looks like content that is generated that is helpful to people.
What's more timely and relevant than questions that your potential clients are actually asking and discussing at the moment? I mean, that's a great approach. I typically ask what role has content played in the growth of your business, but you've described it in so many ways and forms. Anything we didn't cover in that context?
I think part of it is, one, you just have to be, anything in community, for it to be effective, has to be helpful, right? Help me become a better blank, a better marketer, a better QA professional, a better, farmer, a better whatever, right? It starts with being helpful, and part of community is it's authentic, right? And part of doing those things says, when I achieve those, the chances of you coming back to the place where you found that is much higher. If you and I got in this exchange and I'm pitching, a pitch is a very time-specific thing. You want it, you're looking for it only at certain moments, and it doesn't create lasting relationships, if you will. Maybe it does in terms of the pitch worked and you became a customer and then we have a relationship built. But the kind of the relationship of like, why would someone come back to the community that you're building? Why do we have 100,000 people in our community? It's not because we're pitching all day. We're just trying to be helpful all day is the first thing. And making it a safe place for people to come and experience things and get that knowledge. And then to tell others, when you're looking for that thing, here's where I go. You should go there too. I found it to be a safe place, a helpful place, an authentic place. And I think those are some of the elements that come into how do you make that successful. But, one of the things I'll just wrap up with, and I talked about before, is community can't, I often talk about community in terms of orbits. Like you have the product orbit, your brand and company orbit, and a community orbit. Community can't be a moon, right? When marketing or your company is this planet, community can't be this moon that's disconnected. If you're going to do community, you have to figure out how to integrate it with the rest of your business so that when it comes down to why are we investing in any time or people or budget into this thing to make it work? As a marketer, if you can't make that connection, if your CMO can't make that connection, it's harder to justify the investment coming the next fiscal year in that. So you definitely have to make sure that at least someone or some people on the team are making that connection between those things, and that allows you to continue to invest year after year, which also means the relationships that you've built last year after year because you're supporting it in the right, authentic kinds of ways.
I assume there has to be some sort of balance between beginning and creating and nurturing a community and traditional marketing approaches, right? You have to keep the lights on as you're building that trust.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, these community approaches that I've taken before in the past might only be 5 or 10% of a marketing budget, and sometimes even much, much smaller. When we started that thing that went from 0 to 13,000, I can't tell you the numbers because they're proprietary, but if you could imagine the smallest amount of money, like yeah, the smallest amount of money that went into that, just because when we started, it was me and a colleague, and we took 5 friends from the industry who were not even marketing people. They were just like in the profession, and said, we're going to do something to be helpful. Would you come in and join this? And they're like, yeah, let's go for it. And we started telling people. The funny thing was, like, if I look back on that, just to share one more story, when we said we're going to put this thing together to be helpful and go online, the first thing that we needed to do is, we had the idea for doing this online conference. We said we need people to speak, because we were planning to have like 60 or 70 people on the agenda of the first one. And so we started telling people, we need people to speak at this thing that we're doing. And then all these people were responding, how do I register for that? We're like, register? We don't even have speakers. Like, we haven't gotten that far. We literally just started the idea. We weren't even sure it was going to work. In the first month, Mark, my colleague, but we didn't even have a website, because there was literally nothing to show other than we have an idea. So he took an Eventbrite widget, and it was literally just on the screen, like, put your email address in, click one ticket, because that's how Eventbrite worked, and sign up. And if you did this, once we had something, we would email you. In the first month, when we didn't even have any speakers, we were just looking for them, 300 people signed up for the concept. And we were like, I think our goal was like, I think we can get 1,000 people to participate, which at the time in the industry, the biggest event, trade show, or like, conference in person was like 900 people. So when we were saying 1,000, like, we thought that was big, right? And 300 people signed up for a concept. We kind of knew we were onto something, and then it exploded after that. So yeah, but it was literally like a no budget, like, get a URL, put an Eventbrite widget up. It was super low budget, but super authentic as well.
Hey, you speak our language. I use those words almost every day. We preach authenticity and intentionality in content, because you're trying to establish a relationship. If you're fronting on the front end of that, it never ends up having legs, right? It's not a great relationship at the end of the day. So again, I applaud your approach across the board. You speak our language in spades, as it were.
Yeah.
Look down the road a year from now. What are some things, other than reaching the lofty 100,000 in your community goal shortly, what are some things you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
Marketing, to me, it's a blast. I love being in it. And part of me is, how can I help coach other people that work on my team, other people that I work with at the company, on how do we get ourselves even better than we've gotten before. And we're in a high growth business. And so the things that we did a year ago don't necessarily work this year, and definitely won't work next year, because the scale and way that you operate the business changes. So my biggest thing is, how do I help my company and my team evolve and mature into those things that I've been on this kind of growth path before. I've been through companies that have been, exceeded, the revenue levels and growth size that from what we are now. But I can see that road ahead, and I simply want to help my team get further along in that growth path. And then, the other thing that I certainly want to do, and part of why I wrote Unfair Mindshare, was just being helpful and giving back and continuing to do that in the community. Is I've learned a lot in my career, and I'm definitely in the, not in the beginning half, but the latter half of my career. And part of that is just giving back to people and being helpful. So, and others that have forums like this that enable me to just get out and share, I just want to do more of this kind of thing, because I think, being helpful pays off in lots of different interesting ways that I just find so rewarding. So
Hey,
I think that's it. Just continue to be helpful.
it's clear that you've been rippling the pool in a positive way for a long time. I think you did so here today. You've done so for me personally, and I thank you for that. Please tell us, what is Katalon's URL? Where can people find them?
Yeah.
What social media outlets are using these days as well? And also, what's the URL for your book? Where can people find
Yeah.
it?
So Katalon, Katalon, Katalon.com is where you'll find our website. You can also find our community there. If you're a QA professional or in the market and happen to listen to that, definitely dive in there. You can also find us on LinkedIn. We're super active. In fact, our LinkedIn community has grown 50 or 60% this year. I think we're now, I forget the exact number, somewhere around 60, mid 60,000, 65,000 something in our LinkedIn followership. And we continue to post really great active stuff there. Unfair Mindshare, the book, it's available on Amazon. There's Kindle version that's really inexpensive for those of you that are on Kindle and want to download it. There's paperback and hardback there, hardback copies there. And I always tell people, if you found this interesting, you want to reach out. I'm super active on LinkedIn. I hate pitches, right? So someone coming like, Derek, I heard you on this podcast.
Yeah.
I have this product to pitch you. Not a big fan of those, but if you said, wow, I heard something there and I want to dive into that a little deeper, just direct message me on LinkedIn. Andrew, I respond to messages incoming and always like to be helpful. And that's the best place to kind of reach me and do those kind of things.
Beautiful. Derek Weeks of Katalon, thank you so much for spending some time with us today on Business Ninjas. All the best to you and yours and your ever expanding community, and be well.
Andrew, thank you.